Hey guys, so tonight, or last night I should say, WWE held its Saturday night's main event, the first one on Peacock, and for the time being, for the rest of the year, if not indefinitely, it's going to be on Peacock. And first of all, if you're wondering why the sudden change, we're in the college football season now, and NBC has this contractual agreement with the Big Ten to air a lot of Big Ten games in prime time, not just during the day, but in prime time. The day is mostly saved for Notre Dame football, unless it's against a Big Ten school in prime time. But yeah, that's one of the reasons Saturday night's main event migrated over to Peacock, mostly because you know, mostly because NBC values, believe it or not, college football and the Big Ten agreement more so than WWE. Not saying they still don't want to have a piece of that pie, but they're basically like, look, we're just going to place you over here until the season's over. And apparently, it got a lot of, and apparently, it got some positive reviews, or positive views, if you will. And mostly those positive views were due to the fact that they had very little commercials. I mean, it probably would have ads, don't get me wrong, but they were very, very little. They weren't like just constantly showing up and be, but what's the word I'm looking for? They weren't constantly showing up and uh, barraging, barraging the entire broadcast, kind of barraging. That's the word I'm looking for, barraging the entire broadcast with their advertisements. It's like one of the things people complained about is Saturday night's main event. Well, with Saturday night's main event on Peacock, and one of the things people would complain about is basically the fact, it's basically the fact that, they would go to commercial before a match starts, and then when it comes back, they'd only be on the match for 5 minutes, and then they go to another commercial, and then come back, and basically we'd be like at the tail end of the match or something like that, and it just felt very, very annoying, very, very, very much a hindrance, if you will. So basically, a lot of people were kind of happy that it got moved to Peacock, and I think some people were happy when they heard that because they felt that maybe this would be less commercials, and it was. And what people have to understand, though, for the barrage of commercials that we ended up getting on the NBC over-the-air presentation of Saturday's main event, the reason we got hit with such a barrage of them is it's about the advertisers, it's about the local advertisements, it's about the NBC advertisements and stuff like that. It's about NBC most of all, nationally and locally, pleasing and adhering to their sponsors, um, their investors and all that, and everything with the commercials and stuff that they would put on constantly during shows like Saturday Night's Main Event. But a lot of people felt that, for a four match structure, it was all right. It didn't, as far as story goes, it didn't really advance too much, but just advanced what it needed to. And the notable things that came out of it were three things. One, we have a new women's champion in Jade Cargill, a new WWE women's champion in Jade Cargill, and we have a new world heavyweight champion in CM Punk, basically rectifying what happened at SummerSlam. But then outside of that, the other news was there's going, and people have to give, I will say this because Monster, when he did his review, basically said, kind of in a sarcastic manner, but, not so sarcastic. That's the way I viewed it. Basically, he said that we need to owe Dave Meltzer an apology because this was one of the times throughout the year, that Dave got something right. And I think we have to say that about Meltzer this year. Like, even though he's very favorable towards AEW, very biased, let's be honest with ourselves on that, there have been times that he has gotten a few news items right because I think what happens is that when he gets in contact with certain sources, if you will, the sources he gets in contact with are probably sources that are close to the situation. Like maybe they know people, that work within WWE that can give them at least an idea of what it's like the leading candidate for discussing certain things to happen in the near future. And Meltzer was the first to report this year that Rock wasn't going to be a part of anything. We didn't believe him, but yet there it was. Proof is in the pudding. And then he reported that the way John Cena's final opponent on the last Saturday night's main event of the year, which is also going to be his last match, if you will, that his final opponent would be determined in a tournament. But we weren't sure but he wasn't sure, I should say, Meltzer wasn't sure what kind of tournament, just a tournament. Well, we found out last night that it will be a 16-man tournament that will determine who will fight John Cena on John Cena in John's basically on Saturday night's main event next month. As part of his last match. Those are the words I'm Those are the words I'm trying to find. I do apologize. It's late and everything, late, early, if you will. I do apologize, and I'm gonna have to set my clock back in just a little bit too, because we're about to fall back, if you know what I mean. But anyway, like I said, the announcement was we were gonna have a 16-man tournament, and the way John Cena hyped it up, because he was the one narrating, what was going to happen. Basically, not only is it going to be a 16-man tournament, and people are going to have to work and earn this opportunity, that's going to be granted to the winner. Basically being similar to the opportunity he got in 2002, where Kurt Angle called out anybody to face him, and John Cena stepped up and said that famous line of ruthless aggression and all that, kind of basically ushering in that era, if you will. And basically he's saying, look, I'm giving the same opportunity to people, but they're not just going to be having, it's not just going to be given to them. They're going to have to earn it. And that's what's going to happen with this tournament, which starts a week from tomorrow, which it will be Monday. Tomorrow's Monday. It's now Sunday, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's going to be earned a week from tomorrow starting in John Cena's hometown of Boston, which will be the last time he appears for WWE in Boston in person as well. I can also assume that's going to set up potentially him and Dom to face each other at Survivor Series, because that's another rumor that not only Meltzer but places like Fightful and PW Insider have been reporting as a potential direction they can go in with John for Survivor Series War Games. Now, with that said, one of the big things that John said here during this announcement was not only was it going to be a 16-man tournament, but it was also going to involve Raw superstars from Raw, SmackDown, NXT. But then he said something at the end after mentioning Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. And we can also assume Evolve. He didn't say Evolve, but we can assume Evolve's an extension of NXT, so we can assume Evolve as well. But he said that basically it's going to involve superstars from Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and maybe even some people that are not even working for WWE. And basically, he said it's going to be filled with some familiar faces that he has a storied past with, and some new faces that he has yet to get in the ring with. So, what this does basically is it makes things very intriguing, especially that last part where he says, "Hey, you'll probably." He basically stated that not only are you going to see talent from all three, if not four brands, if you will, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and Evolve by extension through NXT. But he also said it's going to involve people that don't even work here or don't even work for WWE that'll be part of it. Now, a lot of people obviously are assuming that that means finally we're going to, get what we hoped for, since, this announcement, and we're going to get Edge, we're going to get Adam Copeland to come back in and do this. And I think a lot of people do have it correct, like Monster and others do have it correct. Like, yeah, it's a good thing to dream about, but that's all you're going to be able to do is dream. You there's no way, excuse me, there is no way that Tony Khan's going to allow Adam Copeland, Edge, to go and do this tournament, especially if it means he's going to lose in one of the rounds. He's not going to let him do it. Now, the way Edge could do it, the way Adam Copeland could do it, is he could basically have put into the contract, that he signed, with AEW, that he could potentially leave the company for a time, go back to WWE for whatever comes up the road, and and then after that's all said and done, come back to the company. He could have done that. He could. He probably could have put it in his contract, if not as soon as John Cena made the announcement last year that that 2025 was going to be his last year. He could have done it as soon as that, and maybe he had to convince Tony Khan to let him put it in it we don't know. We don't know, but um, we'll have to see if if something miraculous happens, if you know what I mean. But yeah, again, that last part where he said people not even working for the company are going to be part of this. Obviously, that mostly could mean that we're going to get talents, maybe more than likely from TNA, and probably that's about it. TNA, GCW, at the most, but that's probably about it. Um, we don't really know, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. And for all we know, maybe they made a deal with New Japan, and we know they have a partnership with Pro Wrestling Noah, and that's what Kenta, the former Hideo Itami, is wrestling. So maybe they made a deal with Noah to bring Kenta in to be part of the tournament. That would be interesting to see. And maybe they did make a deal with New Japan. I mean, New Japan is not exclusively, it's not New Japan, and Tony Khan's gonna have to realize this. If this is a reality, New Japan is not exclusive just to AEW. They can work with anybody they want. AEW is just a partner that's giving them a lot of notoriety right now, a lot of exposure. Um, but yeah, New Japan, is not exclusive to All Elite Wrestling. You know, so they and their talents can make partnerships with whoever they want, and they are part. They are part of this United League, United Wrestling League in Japan that includes Noah and All Japan and BJW and so on. So basically someone like Hiroshi Tanahashi, who's in his final year, could come in and be part of this, and then that could potentially give fans what they want. Tanahashi against Nakamura in the tournament, or Tanahashi potentially against John Cena if they want to make that the final match. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do. But it's going to be interesting to see exactly from not just the initial WWE brands, excuse me, the initial WWE brands that are involved in this, but also like let's say from AAA, because AAA is owned by WWE. AAA is owned by WWE by 51%. So they can have talents like Val Kingo in there. They can have L.A. Park in there. So on. They can have Dr. Wagner Jr., if you will, and hero Dr. Wagner Jr. in there. So they could have some great talents from AAA come in and be part of it as well, along with talent from NXT, along with talent from Raw, along with talent from SmackDown, Evolve by extension, and even TNA. I mean, I know with the TNA partnership, you can expect people like a Nick Nemeth, to show up and be part of that. A Nick Nemeth to be part of that, a Matt Hardy, a Jeff Hardy, to be part of that. So because our talents in TNA right now that have worked with WWE, that have had a history with John Cena, and that could potentially lead to some interesting matchups as well. But however they go about this tournament, whoever they bring in from not just their initial, all right, okay, sorry about that. Like I said, like I said, sorry about that and everything. But anyway, like I said, basically, what was it? Oh yeah, basically it's going to depend basically on how they pull this all together for the tournament. Like who are we going to see meet up with each other when it comes to all four initial brand, oh actually five brands when you think about it: WWE, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Evolve, AAA. It's going to be interesting who they bring in to that equation. And it's also going to be interesting who they pull from TNA, because we know they're going to bring some people from TNA to be part of this, like Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler, if you will, and a few others. We know that's going to happen. We know Joe Henry wants to be part of this. or he's gonna want to be part of this lobby. He'll probably lobby for it, if you will. So it's gonna be intriguing to see what they do and like who else they talk to outside of WWE. Like if they talk to Noah and bring someone like Kenta in, or they talk to New Japan and say let's bring Tanahashi, and so on. It's gonna be an intriguing situation to see who's a part of this and how it's gonna get structured and who they're going to end up ultimately going to go with. I mean, a lot of people feel like the ultimate winner out of this is going to be Gunther because that's been the rumored plan from the get go. And if it is, that's a good choice. It establishes him. But then others are saying, hey, it could be Obafemi, and what better way to, really bring him to the forefront, if you will, than to have him win this tournament and beat John Cena in his final match. Just saying that's something to look at. But it'll be interesting how it's structured. It'll be interesting also how the potential Cena Mysterio, John Cena Dominic Mysterio match plays into it. Because if they go with that at War Games, at Survivor Series War Games, and they have John beat Dom and win the one championship he's never won, and that's the Intercontinental Championship, then could this mean his final match, on Saturday Night's Main Event the following month, several weeks later, that is, could be for the Intercontinental Championship, and against who? Could it be against Gunther? Could it be against Obafemi? Could it be against you know someone that we don't expect? It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they approach this, and everything going forward. Now, the other things, of course, that came out of Saturday Night's Main Event, like I said, Jade Cargill, she's the new women's champion. Congratulations to her. But I said something online in response to one of the things JD said about her win. I basically said something in response to somebody that responded to him, and that is, I told him that, yeah, I basically said that, because obviously what it looks like from the get go right now is the plan is to get Jade to WrestleMania to face Bianca. But according to reports, some you can take with a grain of salt, some you can take legitimately or semi-legitimately. Reports are, Bianca's status is still up in the air. Some are saying her injury is a lot worse than what it is. Some have said she was at SmackDown on Friday. So, if she was at SmackDown on Friday, does that mean she's close to coming back? We'll have to see. But a lot of people are saying all roads are leading towards her and Jade at WrestleMania. And even though that's a good matchup, a very intriguing matchup to have between the two, a lot of people basically have, kind of responded with, yeah, that sounds great and everything, but that means, unfortunately, Bianca's got to become a two-time Royal Rumble winner, or she's got to become a two-time Elimination Chamber winner, and they're not looking forward to that. They don't want to see a repeat of that. So, so hopefully, maybe it might happen before then. We don't know. We don't know if it'll happen. We don't know if it'll happen at the Rumble. We don't know if it'll happen on the Saturday Night's Main Event, if you will, the John Cena retirement one. We don't know. We don't know, but we don't even know if it might even happen on the last SmackDown of the year. We don't know, but it will be interesting to see when that encounter takes place, depending on when she comes back. And I've got a feeling she'll be back soon. I think the reports of, oh, it's a lot worse than what it is, that's probably just, WWE and Bianca probably just throwing it out there to throw people off so that, when she returns, it'll be a big surprise. It'll be a huge surprise. Um, but I told them too, in response to that, because again, that seems like the direction they want to go in. I basically said in response on the Twitter account, I said, this isn't AEW. This is WWE. This is different. I basically told him that this is not AEW. This is WWE, and her title reign probably won't last that much long. And if they have their way, knowing how WWE is at times, her reign may not even last that long. And what I meant by that is, if WWE feels like it, come, Survivor Series, if you will, and they do the rematch with Tiffany, which is coming. Tiffany might win it back, in Survivor Series. They might put like And they might put like some kind of stipulation together and all that to where it's like a street fight or something, and Tiffany ends up winning it back, and you only give Jade maybe a few week run with the title, kind of like test things out, see how it's gonna see test things out as an experiment to see how well she'll be received as the women's champion. Let's see how dominant she can be and everything. Because again, this isn't AEW to where it's like, okay, you can keep the title as long as you want, and here's your opponents, da da da, Momo, whatever. No, this is a situation to where WWE, they're testing it out right now. It has been a long time coming. We all knew it was gonna happen the moment she came in, but even though we knew it was gonna happen, we just don't know how long it's going to be. We don't know how long she's gonna keep that championship, because she might keep it for, you know, uh, a long while. She might keep it up to WrestleMania. She might keep it up to the Rumble. You know, but I've got a feeling that the earliest she could lose it is at Survivor Series at the end of the month, because this might just be like an experimental run to see how well she does and how well she's received. And if she isn't received very well, then I could potentially see her dropping that title back to Tiffany at Survivor Series, and then they just maybe run it back when the time is right, when they feel like, okay, now she's ready. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. I mean, obviously, it was the goal to get the belt on her. They just didn't know when. They didn't do it at SummerSlam because they felt she wasn't ready there. So obviously they feel like, okay, now is the time to do it since we turned her heel. But we'll see what happens from here. If she keeps it to Mania, she keeps it to Mania. If they want to try to make her, the longest reigning women's champion of the modern era, if you will, have her break records like the one that she made and got broken, and the one she made in AEW that recently got broken. If they want to do that, that's fine. It's up to them. But I'm just going to look at this as a wait and see. Man, I'm happy she's got the shot. And I'm sure she's happy she's being given this opportunity, no matter how long it's going to be. But again, I've got a feeling this is just an experimental phase, and we'll see what happens from there. And as far as CM Punk winning the WWE the World Heavyweight Championship, I think that's great. You can do a lot with CM Punk now. Get him into, especially as far as like the world title picture goes, because obviously we know he's facing Braun Breaker. We know that's the next step. He's facing Braun Breaker. We know that. And CM Punk might be, kind of in the same situation as Jade Cargill. He just might be champion for the next several weeks, and then he drops it to Braun Breaker, at Survivor Series. And that would be a big moment for Braun. And then Braun could just run with that title to at least Mania. And basically, when he faces Roman, either drop it to Roman, which I'm sure not a lot of people would like, or retain it by having Roman put him over. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what they do. Or they could wait till John Cena's retirement on Saturday Night's Main Event next month, which is going to be a big show in its own right. And what better way to crown the future, of the WWE than by giving Braun the world title on the same night that John Cena's hanging it up, if you know what I mean. What better way to do that? So they got a couple of options. But all roads, in my opinion, are leading to a Braun Breaker. They really are. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. I mean, obviously, it looks like we might be getting another Drew and Cody match Survivor Series. Maybe, I'm not really sure. I mean, I was thinking about this. If you want Drew to really go over the edge, and he feels like corporate is protecting Cody, have him start something with Nick Aldis, and have him use Nick Aldis as a means to not only get a match with Cody again in Survivor Series, but a match that would ensure he walks out of Survivor Series with the championship. So, to me, Drew has to cross a line. And I'm not talking cross the line to TNA. No, I'm talking about cross the line that basically rarely gets crossed, but certain storylines will call for it. And I think this is one of those that will call for it. And I think that line is for him to go and stalk Nick Aldis' home, where Mickey James is at. You incorporate Mickey James into the storyline. You have McIntyre threaten to hurt her unless he gets the kind of match he wants against Cody for the title at Survivor Series. You have McIntyre do that. You're basically, in storyline, you're forcing Aldis' hand, and Aldis would have no choice to be like, okay, Drew, You want whatever match you want, you'll get. Just stay away. And then Drew can name the match he wants, ensuring in his mind that he has a clear path to being champion at Survivor Series. So to me, I think that's obviously the next step they need to take with Drew if we're going to get that third matchup between him and Cody at Survivor Series War Games, because that's obviously what we're leading or heading towards in the near future. But yeah, very newsworthy coming out of Survivor Series. Not Survivor Series, but Saturday night's main event. Very newsworthy for WWE. And obviously, Tony Khan, he didn't want to be left out in the cold. He didn't. Tony Khan decided, you know what? Because he made the announcement. He said on Collision, that he was going to make the announcement about something happening for the first time in AEW. And basically, the same week, we get announced that we're going to get the men's, you heard me right there, men's blood and guts match with the Death Riders against the conglomeration, if you will, of Orange Cassidy, Darby Allin, Mark Briscoe, and who else? Roderick and Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, I think. When we got the announcement that they are going to take on the Death Riders and the men's blood and guts, Tony Khan decided to make an announcement on social media that we were also going to get something with the women, and we did. And the women are going to get they're going to get a blood and guts match, excuse me. But it's going to be Mercedes, the Triangle of Madness, Megan Ford, I think. Yeah, the Triangle of Madness, Triangle of Madness, not Magnus, but Triangle of Madness. It's going to be Mercedes Moné, yes, Mercedes Moné, in there, as well as Megan Bain, I think. And I think there's somebody else, but I'm not really sure. And they're going to be taking on Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale, Harley Cameron. I think they're going to be taking on. I mean, they're also partnering with. Okay, it's basically, I think. Oh yeah, and Jamie Hayter and Queen Amanati. So it's Queen Amanati, Jamie Hayter, Harley Cameron, Willow Nightingale, and Chris Statlander against Mercedes, Megan Bain, Megan Bain, Julia Hart, Sky Blue, and Tekla, and Marina Shafir. There you go. And the women's blood and guts. So yeah, Tony Khan obviously, like I said, didn't want to try to be outdone, but you know, obviously it's late, guys. I do apologize. I'm recording this for later on. But like I said, obviously, he didn't want to be outdone by WWE in Saturday night's main event. So he made the announcement tonight, through Collision, that that's what's going to happen. So the women's blood and guts is going to be Mercedes, Marina Shafir, Megan Bain in the Triangle of Madness, Julia, Sky, and Tekla against Chris Statlander, Willie Nightingale, Harley Cameron, and Jamie Hayter and Queen Amanati in the women's blood and guts. So you got two blood and guts on November 12th, that are going to be happening. Will they be happening back to back? Well, obviously, you got to fill up 2 hours or 2.5 hours. So obviously, it's going to happen back to back. But it will be interesting to see what they do. And basically, if you're into the violence and everything, because their version of War Games, Blood and Guts, is a lot more violent than what WWE does. You got to ask yourself who's going to out-violent who, between those two matches. And obviously, WWE is going to be in response to that by building up to what the War Games matches will be for both the men's and the women at the end of the month. But, basically outside of that, information and what happened in WWE, not kind of a newsworthy Saturday night when it comes to wrestling on both sides. And yeah, that's all I can really say on it. Just wanted to come on here, give you my thoughts and all that, and just let me know what your thoughts are down below, guys. And I know I didn't say this at the beginning because I wanted to get this out of the way, but if you can and everything, do me a solid favor, and that is like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, share the video, ring the bell for notifications, like I said, and click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere. Also, you can click on some of the links in the description to support me elsewhere outside of YouTube as well. But guys, that's all I'm going to say on it. Let me know what your thoughts are, and until then, I am out.